Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UES Horizon, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship had been traveling through space for 3 months now, exploring new worlds and looking for signs of alien life. So far, they had found nothing but empty planets and floating rocks. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and air recycling systems. Jake's crew worked at their stations, checking sensors and monitoring the ship's systems. Everything seemed normal until Lieutenant Commander Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her engineering console. "Captain, I'm picking up a strange signal," she said, her dark eyes focused on the readings. "It's coming from the direction of Proxima Centauri b." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of signal?" "Looks like a distress call," Lisa replied, pressing buttons to get more information. "But the pattern is unlike anything I've seen before. It's not using any known human communication protocols." Commander Alex Grant, the ship's first officer, walked over to Lisa's station. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. "Could it be from one of our deep space probes?" Lisa shook her head. "No, sir. This signal is too complex and it's broadcasting on frequencies we don't normally use. Plus, none of our probes are supposed to be in that area." Jake stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. Through the viewing screen, he could see the faint glow of Proxima Centauri in the distance. His gut told him something was wrong, but his curiosity was stronger than his caution. "Dr. Blake, what's your opinion?" Jake asked, turning to the ship's xenobiologist. Kevin Blake was a thin man with messy brown hair who spent most of his time studying alien life forms and cultures. Kevin adjusted his glasses and looked at the signal data on his screen. "Well, Captain, if this really is from an alien source, it could be the first contact we've been hoping for. But we should be careful. We don't know their intentions." Jake nodded slowly. The possibility of meeting aliens was exciting, but it was also dangerous. Earth had sent out exploration ships like the Horizon to find new worlds and new life, but they had always known there might be hostile aliens out there. "Set course for the signal source," Jake ordered, "but keep our weapons ready and shields." Up, the Horizon changed direction and began moving toward Proxima Centauri b. The journey would take several hours, giving the crew time to prepare. Jake called his senior officers to the briefing room. Sergeant Amy Collins, the leader of the ship's small marine unit, sat across from Jake at the conference table. She was a tough woman with short blonde hair and muscular arms covered in military tattoos. Next to her sat Dr. Helen Brooks, the ship's medical officer, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and steady hands. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Murphy, the ship's senior technician, leaned back in his chair. He was a stocky man with red hair who could fix almost anything on the ship. His toolbox was legendary among the crew for containing solutions to impossible problems. "Here's the situation," Jake began. "We're responding to what appears to be an alien distress signal. This could be first contact with an intelligent alien species. I want everyone ready for anything." Amy crossed her arms. "How many Marines do we have aboard, Captain?" 12, Jake replied. "Not exactly an army, but they'll have to do." "The Horizon wasn't built for combat," Alex pointed out. "We have basic defensive weapons, but nothing compared to a real warship." Lisa nodded in agreement. "Our main advantage is that we're fast and maneuverable. If we run into trouble, we can probably outrun most threats." Kevin looked worried. "What if they're more advanced than us? What if their technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours?" "Then we'll deal with that when it happens," Jake said firmly. "Our job is to make contact and learn what we can. But we're not going in there blind." The hours passed slowly as the Horizon approached the source of the signal. When they finally arrived at Proxima Centauri b, the crew gathered on the bridge to see what they would find. The planet looked normal enough. It was rocky and brown with patches of ice at the poles. But there were no signs of cities or spacecraft around it. "The signal is definitely coming from here," Lisa reported. "But I'm not detecting any ships or structures on the planet's surface." Jake frowned. "Keep scanning. There has to be something here." Suddenly, Ryan looked up from his console with alarm. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures. 3 of them, and they're getting stronger." "Date," before Jake could respond. 3. Enormous alien ships appeared out of nowhere. They had been invisible, hiding behind some kind of advanced cloaking technology. Each ship was easily 3 times the size of the horizon, with dark metal hulls covered in strange markings and weapon ports. "Red alert," Jake shouted. "All hands to battle stations." The bridge lights dimmed and warning alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The crew moved quickly to their emergency positions. A voice suddenly filled the bridge, speaking in perfect English but with a cold, emotionless tone. "Human vessel, you will surrender immediately. Prepare to be boarded for specimen collection and tactical analysis." Jake felt his blood run cold. These aliens didn't want to make friends. They wanted to capture his crew and study them like laboratory animals. "This is Captain Morrison of the UES Horizon," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "We're on a peaceful exploration mission. We received what appeared to be a distress signal." "The signal was bait," the alien voice replied. "Your species is primitive but may prove useful for our purposes. We'll surrender now or be destroyed." Alex quickly checked their weapons systems. "Captain, our lasers and missiles aren't even scratching their shields. Their defensive technology is far beyond ours." Through the viewing screen, Jake could see the alien ships moving into position around the horizon. They looked like giant metal predators surrounding a small fish. Kevin was listening to alien communications through his headset. "Captain, I'm picking up their internal communications. They call themselves Catherians. They seem to think we're just another primitive species to be collected." "They're about to learn something about humans," Jake said grimly. "Amy, get your Marines ready. Lisa, I want you to start looking for weaknesses in their technology. Ryan, see what you can jury-rig for weapons." Amy smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "My Marines are ready, Captain. We may be outnumbered, but we're not helpless." The Catherian voice spoke again. "You have 1 minute to surrender, or we will disable your ship and take you by force." Jake looked around at his crew. They were scared, but they weren't giving up. Humans had always been good at fighting when their backs were against the wall. "Lisa, can we run?" Jake asked. "They've got us surrounded and they're faster than us," she replied. "Running isn't an option." "Then we fight," Jake decided. "But not the way they expect us to." Ryan was already pulling panels off the walls and examining the ship's internal systems. "Captain, if we can't fight them with our weapons, maybe we can fight them with everything else." "What do you mean?" Alex asked. We use whatever we have," Ryan explained. "Our waste recycling system has pressure mechanisms. Our kitchen equipment can be modified. Our medical bay has all kinds of tools and chemicals." Jake began to understand. "You're talking about guerrilla warfare, using whatever we can find as weapons." "Exactly," Amy said, catching on. "These aliens expect us to fight like a military force, but humans have always been good at improvising." The alien ships began to move closer, preparing to attach boarding pods to the horizon's hull. Jake could see the pods launching from the enemy vessels, heading straight for his ship. "All right, people," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "This is it. We may not have the best weapons or the strongest shields, but we have something these aliens don't have. We have human creativity. Every item on this ship, every tool, every piece of equipment can be turned into a weapon if we're smart enough. Let's show these Catherians what humans can do when we're cornered." The first alien boarding pod struck the hull with a loud clang. Then came another and another. Soon, cutting beams began slicing through the outer doors. Jake looked at his crew. "One more time. Remember, there are no rules in this fight except one: survive. Use anything and everything you can find. Let's give these aliens a lesson they'll never forget." The battle for the horizon was about to begin, and it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The cutting beams finished their work, and the first alien boarding pod opened with a loud hiss. Steam poured out as 3 tall reptilian creatures stepped onto the horizon. They wore dark armor that covered their scaly green skin and carried energy weapons that glowed with blue light. The Catherians moved with confidence down the corridor. Their leader, a particularly large alien with gold markings on his armor, spoke into his communication device. "First boarding team has entered the human vessel," he reported, "beginning systematic capture of specimens. Resistance appears minimal, but the Catherian leader was wrong about the resistance being minimal. He just didn't know what kind of resistance he was about to face. Corporal Danny Kim crouched behind a food preparation counter in the ship's galley. He was only 22 years old and had joined the Marines just 2 years ago. This was his first real combat situation. His heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. Danny looked around the kitchen area. He had no rifle, no grenades, and no body armor. All he had were the tools and supplies used to feed the crew. Most soldiers would have felt helpless. But Danny remembered what Captain Morrison had said about using everything as a weapon. The young Marine grabbed a large pot and filled it with cooking oil, then turned the heating element to maximum. While the oil heated up, he gathered other supplies: frozen meal packets, magnetic serving trays, kitchen knives, and a fire extinguisher. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The Catherians were coming. Danny pressed himself against the wall next to the kitchen entrance. The first alien stepped through the doorway, energy weapon raised and ready. The creature's reptilian head turned left and right, searching for humans to capture. Danny threw the pot of boiling oil directly at the alien's face. The Catherian screamed in pain and surprise as the hot liquid splashed across his armor and into the gaps around his helmet. The alien stumbled backward, clawing at his burning face. Before the other Catherians could react, Danny started throwing frozen meal packets like grenades. The hard frozen containers struck the aliens with surprising force. While they didn't cause serious damage, they were painful and confusing. The lead Catherian tried to aim his weapon, but Danny was already moving. The young Marine grabbed a magnetic serving tray and used it as a shield, deflecting the alien's energy blast. Then he swung the tray like a club, striking the creature across the head. "What kind of primitive weapons are these?" one of the Catherians demanded in their harsh language. Danny didn't understand the words, but he understood the confusion in the alien's voice. He sprayed the fire extinguisher at the aliens, filling the corridor with thick white foam that blocked their vision. In the medical bay, Dr. Helen Brooks was preparing her own surprises for the boarding party. She had worked as a field medic in several Earth conflicts before joining the space exploration program, so she knew how to fight when necessary. Helen had converted her medical equipment into weapons. She adjusted the surgical laser to its highest setting and positioned it to fire down the main corridor. The defibrillator unit was modified to create electromagnetic pulses that could disrupt alien electronics. Medical aerosols were mixed together to create smoke screens and irritating gases. The doctor also prepared her most unusual weapon, her knowledge of alien biology. Dr. Blake had shared everything he learned from monitoring Catherian communications, including details about their physical structure. Helen knew exactly where to target the aliens to cause maximum pain with minimum effort. 3 Catherians approached the medical bay, confident that they would find only a helpless doctor inside. They were completely unprepared for what Helen had waiting for them. The surgical laser fired as soon as the first alien stepped through the door. The precise beam struck the creature in a nerve cluster that Dr. Blake had identified as particularly sensitive. The Catherian collapsed immediately. Writhing in pain, Helen activated the aerosol dispensers, filling the room with a mixture of medical gases that made breathing difficult for the reptilian aliens. While they coughed and gasped, she used surgical instruments as throwing weapons, targeting specific pressure points on their bodies. The defibrillator unit sent electromagnetic pulses through the metal floor, disrupting the aliens' armor systems and causing their energy weapons to malfunction. One Catherian tried to retreat, but Helen was faster. She stabbed him with a scalpel in exactly the right spot to paralyze his left arm. "Impossible," the alien gasped. "How does this human know our anatomy?" Meanwhile, in the engineering section, Lisa Rodriguez was turning her workplace into a deadly maze. She had spent years learning every system on the horizon, and now she was using that knowledge to create improvised weapons and traps. Lisa rerouted coolant pipes to spray superheated liquid at anyone who entered certain areas. She turned magnetic coils into electromagnetic launchers that could fire metal debris at high speed. The gravity generator was modified to create small areas of intense gravitational pull. that would knock intruders off their feet. When four Catharians entered the engineering section, found themselves in a nightmare of mechanical traps. Coolant sprayed from hidden pipes, burning through their armor. Metal bolts fired from improvised launchers, striking them with tremendous force. One alien managed to avoid most of the traps and approached Lisa's position. She grabbed a heavy wrench and swung it at the creature's weapon, knocking the energy rifle from his hands. Then she activated a gravity pulse that sent the alien crashing into the ceiling. "This is not standard military resistance," the Catharian boarding commander reported to his ship. "The humans are using completely unpredictable tactics." "Explain," came the reply from the Catharian fleet commander. "They are not fighting like soldiers," the boarding commander said, confusion clear in his voice. "They use kitchen equipment, medical tools, and maintenance devices as weapons. Our tactical computers cannot predict their actions because their methods make no logical sense." Captain Morrison listened to the reports coming in from around his ship. His crew was fighting with everything they could find, and it was working. The aliens were confused and frustrated by human creativity. Captain Amy Collins reported over the communication system, "My Marines are ready for the next wave. We've been busy preparing some special surprises." Amy and her Marines had spent the time setting up their own improvised weapons throughout the ship. They used cleaning supplies to create chemical weapons, maintenance tools as melee weapons, and the ship's internal transportation system to move quickly between fighting positions. Ryan Murphy was in the maintenance shafts, crawling through the narrow spaces between decks. He carried a bag full of improvised explosives made from common materials found in storage areas. His target was the alien boarding pod still attached to the hull. The chief petty officer reached the first boarding pod and began working on his explosive device. It wasn't fancy, just chemicals from the ship's cleaning supplies and some electronic components from broken equipment. But Ryan knew it would work. He attached the device to the pod's airlock mechanism and started the timer. Then he crawled quickly to the next pod to repeat the process, back on the bridge. Captain Morrison coordinated his crew's unconventional defense. "Lisa, can you disrupt their communications?" "Already working on it, Captain," Lisa replied from engineering. "I'm using our personal communicators and tablet computers to create electromagnetic interference. Our systems operate on different principles than ours, but electronic noise affects everyone." Dr. Blake was monitoring alien communications from his station. "Captain, the Catharians are becoming increasingly frustrated. They keep reporting that human resistance is illogical and unpredictable. Their commanders are having trouble adapting their tactics." "Good," Jake said grimly. "That's exactly what we want." "Alex, how are our casualties?" "Surprisingly light," Commander Grant reported. "A few minor injuries, but no fatalities. The aliens seem more interested in capturing us alive than killing us." "That works in our favor," Jake replied. "Keep up the pressure, everyone. Show these Catharians what human ingenuity can accomplish." The battle raged throughout the ship as more Catharian boarding parties tried to advance. But everywhere they went, they encountered new and unexpected forms of resistance. Exercise equipment was turned into siege engines. Personal belongings became psychological warfare tools. Even food was used as ammunition. In the ship's recreation area, crew members used sports equipment as weapons. Tennis rackets became shields, basketballs were thrown as projectiles, and exercise bikes were modified to launch small objects at high speed. The ship's library became a fortress, where crew members used books as throwing weapons and furniture as barricades. They discovered that heavy reference books could be quite effective when thrown with accuracy. Even the ship's art supplies were weaponized. Paint was used to blind alien sensors. Sculpting tools became stabbing weapons, and canvas was stretched across corridors to create tripwires. The Catharian boarding commander was becoming desperate. His troops were reporting resistance in every section of the ship, but none of it made military sense. How could kitchen utensils be effective weapons? Why were humans using musical instruments in combat? What possible tactical advantage could art supplies provide? The Catharian fleet commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the reports coming in from the boarding parties. His name was War Leader Zethka, and in 30 years of military service, He had never encountered anything like this. Repeat. Your last transmission, he ordered the boarding commander. War leader, human resistance continues to defy all tactical analysis, came the frustrated reply. They use objects that serve no military purpose as weapons. Our soldiers report being attacked with food preparation devices, recreational equipment, and decorative items. Zethka's reptilian features twisted in confusion. Decorative items? Explain. One of our boarding teams was disabled by humans using what appears to be artwork and musical instruments as weapons. War leader. Other team reports being trapped by furniture and cloth materials arranged in patterns that make no strategic sense. The war leader turned to his tactical officer. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated humans were a primitive species with basic military technology. Perhaps our intelligence was incomplete, war leader, the tactical officer suggested carefully. These humans appear to possess forms of warfare unknown to the Catherian Empire. Back on the horizon, Sergeant Amy Collins was proving the aliens right. She had divided her 12 Marines into 3 teams and was leading them through the ship's maintenance areas. These narrow passages between decks were too small for the tall Catherians to use effectively, giving the humans a major advantage. Amy's team had created a mobile arsenal using cleaning supplies from the ship's janitorial closets. Toilet bowl cleaner mixed with drain opener created a powerful acid that could eat through alien armor. Floor wax became a slippery trap that sent invaders sliding into walls. Even air freshener was turned into a weapon by spraying it directly into alien breathing systems. Collins to Morrison, Amy spoke into her communicator as her team set up another ambush. We're using the maintenance shafts to hit the aliens from unexpected angles. They're too big to follow us in here. Good work. Sergeant Captain Morrison replied. Keep them guessing. How are your supplies holding up? Amy looked at her improvised weapons with satisfaction. Sir, we've got enough cleaning products to fight for days. Plus Ryan showed us how to make explosives from ordinary materials. We're not running out of ammunition anytime soon. The Marine Sergeant led her team to a junction where several maintenance shafts met. Through the metal grating they could see a group of 6 Catherians moving through the corridor below. The aliens were being extra careful now, checking every corner and doorway. Amy motioned for her Marines to get ready. They had prepared a special surprise for this group of invaders. Each Marine carried several containers of different cleaning chemicals that, when mixed together, would create a cloud of irritating gas. On my mark, Amy whispered. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Marines dropped their chemical containers through the grating. The aliens looked up in confusion just as the containers hit the floor and began releasing their contents. Within seconds, the corridor was filled with a thick, choking cloud that sent the Catherians stumbling around blindly, while the aliens coughed and gasped. Amy's team dropped through the grating and attacked with improvised weapons. Became spears, bucket handles were used as clubs, and spray bottles filled with concentrated cleaners became chemical weapons. The fight was short but effective. The Catherians, blinded and choking, couldn't coordinate their defense. Amy's Marines disabled all 6 aliens without suffering a single casualty in another part of the ship. Dr. Kevin Blake was conducting his own form of warfare. The xenobiologist had discovered something interesting about Catherian psychology while monitoring their communications. The aliens were extremely logical and had trouble understanding concepts that didn't make rational sense. Kevin decided to weaponize human culture itself. He began broadcasting human music throughout the ship using the internal communication system. But he didn't choose peaceful songs. Instead, he played loud rock music, comedy routines, and recordings of children laughing and playing games. The effect on the Catherians was immediate and dramatic. The aliens found human emotional expression deeply disturbing. Their rigid, logical minds couldn't process the chaotic creativity of human music and humor. "What is this noise?" one Catherian soldier demanded, pressing his hands against his helmet. "It serves no tactical purpose." "Why do humans create such meaningless sounds?" Kevin smiled as he watched the aliens' confused reactions. He switched to playing recordings of human children singing nursery rhymes. The innocent, playful songs seemed to cause the Catharians actual physical discomfort. "Kenshin all Catharian forces," Kevin announced over their communication frequencies, speaking in their language. "Welcome to Earth culture. Today's lesson will be about the concept of fun. Please pay attention as we demonstrate why humans do things simply because they enjoy them." He began playing a recording of humans laughing at a comedy show. The Catharians on the bridge of their flagship listened in horror as the strange sounds filled their communication channels. "War leader," the tactical officer reported, "the humans are broadcasting some form of psychological warfare. Our boarding teams report difficulty concentrating due to these transmissions." War leader Zethka had never encountered anything like this in his military career. "Cut all communication with the human vessel. We cannot, war leader. They're using our own communication frequencies against us. Somehow they have learned to access our systems." Meanwhile, Chief Petty Officer Ryan Murphy was having the time of his life. The maintenance chief had always been good with electronics. But now, he was discovering that human technology, while less advanced than Catharian systems, operated on completely different principles. Ryan had connected several human devices together. Personal communicators, tablet computers, music players, and even electric razors. The combination created an electromagnetic field that interfered with alien electronics in ways the Catharians had never seen before. "The beautiful thing about human tech," Ryan explained to the crew members helping him, "is that we build everything differently. Every company, every engineer, every hobbyist does things their own way. The aliens can't predict our electronic signatures because we don't have a standard pattern." Ryan's improvised jamming device was causing chaos among the Catharian boarding parties. Their weapons would suddenly stop working, their armor systems would malfunction, and their communication devices would pick up random signals from the ship's entertainment systems. One group of aliens found their helmet displays showing human cooking shows instead of tactical information. Another team's weapons began playing human music every time they tried to fire. A third group discovered that their armor's temperature control was stuck on maximum heat, making them extremely uncomfortable. "This is impossible," the Catharian boarding commander reported. "Human technology is primitive compared to ours. How can it disrupt our advanced systems?" "Perhaps," suggested one of his subordinates, "primitive technology is harder to counter because it is so unpredictable." The boarding commander didn't want to admit it, but his subordinate might be correct. Catharian technology was highly advanced and standardized. Every system worked in logical, predictable ways. But human technology was chaotic, built by thousands of different minds using thousands of different approaches. In the ship's recreation area, more crew members were discovering creative ways to fight. The Horizon's small gymnasium had become a weapons factory, where exercise equipment was converted into siege engines. A rowing machine was modified to launch heavy objects with tremendous force. Barbells became projectiles. Jump ropes were used to create tripwires and snares. Even yoga mats were weaponized by soaking them in slippery substances and stretching them across doorways. "I never thought I'd be fighting aliens with a treadmill," one crew member said as he adjusted the machine. "To launch tennis balls at high speed? Just wait until you see what we did with the ping-pong table," another replied, pointing to a complex contraption that could fire multiple small objects in different directions. The ship's library had also become a battlefield. Crew members used heavy reference books as throwing weapons and projectiles. They discovered that a large dictionary could knock down a Catharian soldier if thrown with enough force. Bookshelves were turned into barricades and obstacles. Reading lamps became clubs. Even bookmarks were used as small projectiles when fired from improvised slingshots made from rubber bands and pencils. The aliens were becoming increasingly desperate. Every room they entered contained new surprises. Every corridor held unexpected dangers. The humans seemed to have an unlimited ability to turn harmless objects into effective weapons. Request permission to begin destroying the human vessel, the boarding commander transmitted to his fleet. Capture operations are proving impossible due to unprecedented resistance methods. War leader Zethka considered the request. His orders were to capture the humans alive for study, but his boarding parties were being defeated by kitchen utensils and exercise equipment. The situation was becoming embarrassing. "Negative," he finally replied. "Continue capture operations. The Catherian Empire must understand how humans achieve such tactical creativity. This knowledge could be valuable." The entire U.S. horizon had become a living weapon. Every corridor, every room, storage closet contained surprises that the Catherian boarding parties couldn't predict or understand. The aliens found themselves fighting not just the human crew, but the ship itself. In the ship's hydroponics bay, where fresh vegetables were grown during long space voyages, crew members had turned gardening into warfare. Plant fertilizer mixed with water became a slippery trap that sent aliens sliding into walls. Garden hoses were pressurized to spray attackers with tremendous force. Even the growing lights were modified to create blinding flashes that confused Catherian visual sensors. "I never thought I'd be fighting with carrots and tomatoes," said engineer Janet Price as she loaded vegetables into an improvised launcher made from irrigation pipes. Her partner, technician Bob Miller, was busy mixing plant nutrients into a paste that would stick to alien armor and create a terrible smell. "Well, the captain did say we could use absolutely anything," he replied with a grin. The hydroponics bay had become a maze of hanging vines, slippery floors, and hidden traps. When 3 Catherians entered the area, they immediately slipped on the fertilizer mixture and crashed into the growing tables. Vegetables rained down on them as the crew activated their plant-based weapons. One alien tried to stand up, but was hit in the face by a high-pressure spray of nutrient solution. Another found himself tangled in tomato vines that had been woven into a net. The third alien's weapon malfunctioned when it was covered in sticky plant sap. "Retreat," the lead Catherian ordered. But retreat was impossible. The floor was too slippery, and the hanging plants blocked their vision. All 3 aliens were captured by humans armed with gardening tools. Meanwhile, Dr. Blake was expanding his cultural warfare campaign. He had discovered something remarkable while monitoring Catherian communications. Some of the younger aliens were beginning to show interest in human creativity rather than disgust. "This is fascinating," Dr. Blake reported to Captain Morrison. "I'm detecting conversations among junior Catherian officers where they're actually discussing human music and art. They seem curious about concepts like humor and improvisation." Captain Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying some of the aliens might be switching sides?" "It's not exactly switching sides," Dr. Blake explained, "but definitely questioning their orders." The younger Catherians appeared to be fascinated by the idea that humans do things for no logical reason except personal enjoyment. This gave Dr. Blake a new idea. He began broadcasting human educational programs about art, music, and creativity. Instead of trying to confuse the aliens, he started trying to teach them about human culture. The effect was unexpected. Several young Catherian soldiers stopped following orders and began secretly helping human crew members. They were amazed by the concept of making things beautiful just because it felt good, or creating music simply because it was fun to listen to. One young Catherian, named Tekra, had been assigned to capture humans in the ship's art studio. Instead, he found himself staring in wonder at human paintings and sculptures. He had never seen anything like them in his rigidly logical society. "Why do you create these objects?"
Acta.
asked the human artist he was supposed to capture.
Acta.
"Because they make me happy," the artist replied simply, "and because other people enjoy looking at them." Tekra's reptilian features showed confusion, but what tactical advantage do they provide? What logical purpose do they serve? "None at all," the artist said with a smile.
That's the whole point.
"We create art because it's beautiful, not because it's useful." This concept was completely foreign to Catherian thinking, but Tekra found himself drawn to it. Leader ordered him to destroy the human artwork. Tekra refused. Instead, he helped the human artist hide the paintings and sculptures. Similar scenes were playing out throughout the ship as more young Catherians encountered human creativity and began to question their rigid military training. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Murphy had expanded his electronic warfare operations to include the ship's entertainment systems. He discovered that human video games, movies, and virtual reality programs could completely overwhelm Catherian computer systems. Their computers keep trying to analyze our entertainment media for tactical significance, Ryan explained to his team. But human entertainment is designed to be random, emotional, and illogical. It's giving their systems digital headaches. Ryan had connected gaming consoles, movie players, and virtual reality headsets to the ship's main computer network. The combined chaos of human entertainment was creating so much electronic noise that the Catharians couldn't maintain contact with their own ships. Captain Ryan reported over the communication system, "I've managed to crash 3 of their boarding pods' computer systems just by broadcasting human soap operas at them. Their artificial intelligence can't understand why humans create stories about people falling in love and having dramatic arguments." The effect was spreading to the Catharian fleet as well. War leader Zethka watched in frustration as his ship's computers struggled to process the human cultural data that was flooding their networks. "Shut down all data links with the human vessel," he ordered. "We cannot," war leader his communications officer replied. "The humans have somehow infiltrated our entire network. Every time we try to establish communications with our boarding parties, we receive transmissions of human children singing songs about friendship and sharing toys." Zethka felt a headache building behind his reptilian eyes. In his entire military career, he had never encountered an enemy that used children's songs as a weapon. Back on the horizon, Sergeant Amy Collins was leading the final phase of the battle. Her Marines had regrouped and were now hunting the remaining alien boarding parties through the ship's corridors. But they weren't hunting like soldiers. They were hunting like artists. Amy had realized that the key to defeating the Catharians was to be completely unpredictable. So she had ordered her Marines to fight like they were creating a work of art, rather than following military tactics. "Remember," she told her team, "there are no rules except creativity. Fight like you're painting a picture or writing a poem. Make it beautiful. Make it surprising, and make it something no military textbook has ever described." The results were spectacular. Marines attacked using dance moves they had learned in their spare time. They created patterns of movement that looked more like performance art than combat maneuvers. They used rhythm and timing to coordinate their attacks, turning warfare into a form of musical expression. The Catharians were completely baffled. Their tactical computers couldn't analyze combat techniques that resembled human recreational activities more than military operations. "How do we counter an enemy that fights using choreographed dance movements?" one Catharian commander asked. "Desperately, I do not know," his subordinate replied. "Our military academy never prepared us for this type of warfare." Throughout the ship, crew members were discovering that absolutely anything could be turned into a weapon if they were creative. Enough. Personal photographs became psychological warfare tools when used to show aliens what human families and relationships looked like. Clothing was turned into camouflage, rope, and protective padding. Even human waste was weaponized when the sanitation systems were modified to create unpleasant surprises for boarding parties. The ship's workshop had become a factory for producing impossible weapons. Crew members used 3D printers to create custom projectiles designed to confuse rather than damage. They built mechanical devices that served no apparent purpose except to make strange noises and movements that distracted alien attention. Created a machine that does absolutely nothing except spin in circles and play random human sounds, announced workshop supervisor Carol Davis. The aliens keep trying to figure out what tactical purpose it serves, but there isn't one. It's completely pointless. And that's exactly why it works. The Catharian boarding parties were now completely demoralized. They had been trained to fight logical enemies who followed predictable patterns. But humans seemed to operate according to principles that made no sense whatsoever. "Request immediate evacuation," the boarding commander transmitted to his fleet. "Human resistance has exceeded all tactical parameters. Recommend full retreat and reassessment of human combat capabilities." War leader Zethka faced a difficult decision. His boarding operation had failed completely. His advanced technology had been defeated by kitchen utensils, art supplies, and gardening equipment. His elite warriors had been outfought by humans. Using dance moves and children's toys, the situation was becoming not just militarily impossible, but psychologically damaging to his troops. Several of his younger soldiers were refusing orders and expressing interest in human cultural concepts. His computer systems were crashing from exposure to human entertainment media. His entire fleet was being paralyzed by an enemy that used friendship songs as weapons.
All units.
Prepare for withdrawal, Zethka finally ordered. We will return to base and report our findings to the Empire. But the war leader knew that his report would be difficult to write. How could he explain to his superiors that the most advanced military force in known space had been defeated by humans using artwork, music, and vegetables? The last Catharian boarding pod detached from the horizon with a metallic clang that echoed through the ship. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the alien pods return to their massive warships, but he knew this victory was only temporary. The real battle was about to begin. Damage report. Morrison ordered. Commander Grant checked his console. Surprisingly minimal, Captain. Few minor injuries, some damage to corridors and equipment, but nothing critical. The aliens were more interested in capturing us than destroying the ship. That worked in our favor, Morrison replied.
Ow.
But now they'll probably try a different approach. They'll want to destroy us rather than capture us. Through the viewing screen, Morrison could see the 3 Catharian warships moving into attack formation. Their weapons were charging, and energy readings showed they were preparing to fire everything they had at the small human vessel. Lieutenant. Commander Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her engineering station. Captain, their weapons are designed to punch through military-grade shields and armor. Our defensive systems won't last more than a few seconds against that kind of firepower. Morrison nodded grimly. The Horizon was an exploration ship, not a warship. In a direct fight against 3 alien battlecruisers, they would be destroyed instantly. Then we don't fight them directly, Morrison said. We fight them the same way we fought their boarding parties. We get creative. Dr. Blake was still monitoring alien communications from his station. Captain, I'm picking up interesting conversations on the Catharian command channel. The war leader is arguing with his officers about what to do with us. What kind of arguments? Morrison asked. Some of the younger officers are suggesting they try to communicate with us instead of destroying us, Blake explained. They're fascinated by our cultural broadcasts and want to learn more about human creativity. Morrison saw an opportunity. Can you tap into their communication system? Already working on it, Blake replied, his fingers moving quickly over his console. Ryan's electronic warfare setup gave me access to their network. I think I can broadcast directly to their fleet. Meanwhile, Chief Petty Officer Ryan Murphy was in the ship's maintenance bay, working on his most ambitious project yet. He had been thinking about the alien ship's sensors and how they analyze targets. Captain Ryan called over the communication. System, I've got an idea that's either brilliant or completely insane. At this point, I'll take either one, Morrison replied. What do you have? Well, sir, the aliens keep analyzing everything we do, looking for tactical significance. What if we give them something so confusing that their computers can't handle it? Ryan had been working with the ship's waste heat systems, background radiation, collectors, and even the crew's body heat signatures. His plan was to create false sensor readings that would make the Horizon appear to be something it wasn't. I can make us look like a much bigger ship, Ryan explained. Or maybe even multiple ships. The trick is to use systems the aliens wouldn't expect us to weaponize. Morrison was intrigued. Explain. Every ship gives off heat, radiation, and electromagnetic signatures, Ryan said. The alien sensors read these signatures to determine what they're looking at. But what if we create fake signatures using completely unrelated systems? Ryan had connected the ship's heating system, waste recycling, food preparation equipment, and personal electronics into one massive sensor-spoofing device. The combination would create an electromagnetic signature, unlike anything in known space. Their computers will try to analyze what they're seeing, Ryan continued, but the sensor data won't match anything in their databases. It'll be like showing them a new color that doesn't exist. Captain Morrison made his decision. Do it, Blake. Are you ready to broadcast to the alien fleet? Ready, Captain? All right, people. This is our final gambit. We're going to convince 3 alien warships that they're facing something they can't understand or defeat. Ryan, Activate your sensor spoofing. Blake, open a channel to the Catherian fleet. The first part of the plan worked immediately. As Ryan's improvised device came online, the sensor readings from the horizon became completely impossible. Ship's heat signature suggested it was 3 times larger than it appeared. Its electromagnetic readings indicated multiple vessels in the same location. Its radiation output matched no known technology on the Catherian flagship. War leader Zethka stared at his tactical display in confusion. "Tactical officer, explain these sensor readings," he demanded. "I cannot, war leader," came the worried reply. "Our sensors indicate the human vessel has somehow grown in size and multiplied. The energy signature suggests the presence of multiple ships, but visual confirmation shows only one vessel." "Run a full diagnostic on our sensor array," Zethka ordered. "Diagnostics complete, war leader. All systems are functioning normally. The impossible readings appear to be accurate." At that moment, Dr. Blake's transmission reached the Catherian fleet. But instead of a standard military communication, the aliens received something they had never heard before: a human child singing a song about friendship and sharing toys,
Oh?
mixed with classical music and poetry readings. "War leader," the communications officer reported, "we are receiving transmissions from the human vessel. But the content is ... unusual." Define unusual. "The humans appear to be broadcasting educational material about emotional concepts, recreational activities, and artistic expression. There are also readings that suggest a large human fleet is approaching this position." Zethka felt another headache building. A large human fleet? How many ships? Sensor readings are unclear, war leader. Electromagnetic signatures suggest anywhere from 12 to 50 human vessels, but we cannot achieve visual confirmation. The truth was that there were no other human ships within dozens of light years. The sensor readings were completely false, created by Ryan's improvised device. But the Catherians had no way to know this. Captain Morrison took advantage of the confusion by broadcasting a message to the alien fleet. But instead of threatening them, he decided to try something completely different. "Catherian vessels, this is Captain Morrison of the Human Exploration Fleet," he announced, deliberately using the word fleet instead of ship. "We have no desire for conflict. We came here in peace, hoping to learn about other species and share our culture with them." Morrison paused, then continued with the most important part of his message. "We would like to invite representatives from your fleet to join us for what humans call a cultural exchange. We will share our art, music, and stories with you, and we hope you will share your knowledge with us." The suggestion was so unexpected that it caused chaos on the Catherian command bridge. In their entire military history, no enemy had ever invited them to a cultural exchange in the middle of a battle. "War leader," one of the younger officers spoke up, "perhaps we should consider this offer, as the humans have demonstrated capabilities we do not understand. Learning about their culture might give us tactical advantages," or suggested another young officer. "We might discover that cultural exchange is more valuable than conquest." Zethka was torn between military protocol and growing curiosity. His boarding operation had failed completely. His sensors were showing impossible readings. Now the humans were offering to teach him about their mysterious creative abilities. Dr. Blake reported to Captain Morrison, "I'm detecting major discussions on all 3 alien ships. The younger officers are very interested in our cultural exchange offer. Some of them are openly questioning orders to attack us." Morrison smiled. "Keep broadcasting our cultural programs. Let them hear our music, our stories, and our laughter. Show them what it means to be human." The strategy was working better than Morrison had hoped. The combination of impossible sensor readings and fascinating cultural broadcasts was creating doubt and curiosity throughout the Catherian fleet. On the alien flagship, war leader Zethka was facing a situation no military training had prepared. Half his officers wanted to attack the humans, while the other half wanted to accept their invitation for cultural exchange. War leader, his tactical officer, reported, "Long-range sensors detect additional human vessels approaching from multiple directions. We may be facing a coordinated fleet action." These sensor readings were also false. created by Ryan's increasingly creative electronic spoofing. But they added to the Catherians' uncertainty about human capabilities. Finally, one of the youngest Catherian officers made a suggestion that changed everything. War leader, what if we are approaching this situation incorrectly? What if the humans' greatest weapon is not their technology, but their ability to think in ways we cannot predict? Perhaps the logical response is to learn from them rather than fight them. Zethka looked around his bridge at his officers. For the first time in his career, he was facing an enemy that had defeated him not with superior firepower, but with creativity, humor, and the offer of friendship. Communications officer, Zethka said slowly, "Open a channel to the human vessel. Channel open, war leader." Human Captain Morrison, Zethka began. "This is war leader Zethka of the Catherian Empire. Your tactics have proven most effective. We would like to accept your invitation for cultural exchange."